Okay, let's do our best. So if you're watching this, thank you for taking time. I'll get right to the point. I don't like to ramble, and if I do, please forgive me. Okay, my name is Ryan, and I am a student of metaphysics, a student of understanding, intelligence, learning, all that great stuff. And this video here is actually going to be an extension of information I've received from a few YouTubers and not just YouTubers, also like teachers. So I like to right now take the time to thank Brother Youssef, okay, and Dr. Phil Valentine, because they helped me with the concept of this in particular video. And we're just going to expound on the energy behind information. And I mentioned Brother Youssef because he speaks on sigils and how shapes, and of course he's not the only one, I understand that, but how shapes and sigils can hold a massive amount of information, and they help us with our understanding. Now, if you can see on the screen here, I have a couple of sigils that I use to help me remember in time and space where I am, because I use something called a spectrum house, and it kind of looks like, I'll make an example of the spectrum house to give an example of what we're talking about. Okay, so this is one of the sigils I use to understand the spectrum house. So what is a spectrum house? As you can see, both of these symbols here are involved in both what I'm talking about, and they resemble life force. Okay, and that can mean life force can mean understanding in all directions. Okay, because life is in all directions, consciousness is in all directions, every single direction. So this sigil down here represents the spectrum house. The spectrum house represents the many, I don't want to say faces, but the many houses that you tend to as a light warrior, meaning you may have certain energy or certain things you do when you going to your employer, if you have an employer. Okay, that could be one house. You may have a different perspective of what you do when you deal with your children, if you have children. That's another part of your house. Or maybe when you're cooking your meals or going out to eat, you have a way of dealing with your environments in a different type of house. It depends how vast your house is, okay? And we'll get to that sigil later. Okay, that's just an example of what we're talking about here. So let's see if I can get a bigger. And we're doing this off the muscle because that's just the best way to do things. So again, I like to bring up Brother Youssef again because he speaks on the ability of symbols to speak to us in a different type of understanding of light language, because we have mirrors of our own light from different dimensions inside of us, okay, inside of our consciousness, inside of our mind, inside of our DNA. So we were taught that the material world, the 3D world, and this symbol also represents the 3D world. It lets me know that, and I'll get to that in a second, but it lets us know that we don't have to depend on the 3D world, because the 3D world has been compromised. And we all understand what that means. I'm not going to detail with that. The compromising is that you are given strong suggestion, a very strong suggestion of where you are in time and space. That is not the end all be all. When you walk out, most of us live in a city. If you're listening to this, and you can walk out, you see concrete, or the grass has been covered by concrete. You're not even probably walking on the top of the land, the grass. They put so much concrete down, I don't even know if we are on the level. Yet there are street lights, street signs. You might see rows of houses, what they call houses. I don't call them houses, dwellings, or temples, whether houses, or maybe a street corner, maybe a stop sign. These are to give you strong suggestions of where you are in time and space. That is not the only land that you can use in order to transcend time and space. Now, I'm going to try to use simple concepts because these are simple concepts. It's just that, sometimes you have to hear things out loud, or sometimes you have to see things just so you get a better understanding. And I appreciate all the master teachers throughout the years, on helping me get this information. I'll get to who those people are later on. Excuse me if I'm talking too fast. That's just how it goes. So, right here, this sigil here is one of the most important to me because hold on, I spelled it wrong. Sorry, I'm thinking of a whole different word while I'm doing this, and something else came out. So this sigil here helps me understand that you can build onto concepts, and that gives you reason and energy to build your own land in your own world. And not just, sketching. It could be just sketching, it could be just handwriting, but we're going to take it to another level where we're going to learn how to use sigils and information, cybernetics, in order to connect ourselves to the eternal information, okay? The eternal shape. Now, what I love about this information, and I love about certain sciences and cybernetics and metaphysics, is that it's boundless, if you know what you're talking about. Also, it deals with understanding from your environment. And so what does that mean? Meaning you can use shapes. I'll see if I can do it right now. Let me see. Hope you guys can hear me. I'm coming through clear. You can use shapes to bring out understanding that is unparalleled, or not in the material world, not in the three-dimensional material world, because we work in multiple worlds. The spirit, the shapeless world that we call the spirit world. Some people call it the spirit world, energy world, information world. Information is really shapeless. There's no shape to information. There's no shape to spirit. It doesn't have a shape. When you breathe in air, the air shapes your lungs. Your lungs don't have a shape. Your brain doesn't have a shape. Our bodies don't have shapes. You know what I'm saying? We actually name the things that are shaped. So the brain is not not just a mega computer. It's also a shape. So you say brain, that's the shape of something. That's not. You don't see brains in nature besides the brains that are in our heads. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? So, and we have our ancestors in antiquity who also learned the divine geometry, divine mathematics of shape that connect us back to all information. And they understood and build with shape, not just to make cool designs to put on t-shirts now. No, they use shapes as a way of shaping intelligence, shaping the intelligence of all things, to connect all things. And they learn awesome secrets like patterns, meaning if you have the same shape and you use the same shape in a certain capacity, it will open up understanding into you. So sometimes when I forget things, I might just start, using sigils and using information, shaping information. Because information does not have a shape. We're shaping information right now. We're using symbols to shape information. It will help me connect with things that I have probably stored in other parts of my spectrum house. I hope that makes sense. Okay, so shout out to the ancestors, for real, for real. That's what we do it for. You know what I'm saying? We love the ancestors, and because they were not, no matter what they tell us a whole bunch of BS now about people were trading with cowrie shells and money was a thing back then. let me tell you this. It's over here. We believe that now the bankers have taken over, and we just are pseudo bankers now, and not even that. We're pretty much just like serfs or slaves to the bankers. Yet before the time of that takeover, you know, you had the information and the currency of the planet was understanding intelligence. And intelligence not meaning how smart you are, but how can you connect all understanding and reshape it and get a new understanding. And you dive your information to your energy. And then we would reconstruct the material world, because reconstructing the material world opens up portals to different information. Now, we already talked about like when you go outside and you see houses and you see a very strong suggestion of the world around you. But what if you didn't? What if you went outside and replaced every house with a pyramid? Or replaced every house with a spaceship? Or maybe replace every house with a tree? It would suggest a different environment and time and space to our consciousness. And therefore, we will perform different duties. Now, that reminds me, going back to our sigil up here. Okay? This sigil allows me to understand that we are building on something. Okay? I actually call this sigil a building. Ironically, that's just... Ironically, I call it a building. And it lets me know that I'm going to be building on a concept. Now, awesomely, you can also reshape the understanding of the sigil and get a different concept. I'm sorry, hold on. Give me one second. My screen is kind of cracked. So, okay. That's good enough. Okay, and what if we did this? Maybe add some more information in the form of energy we call symbols. Okay. Okay, like we said here, this is life force. Okay, we have an arrow pointing to life force, and then we have a building and a building beneath the building. Okay, now this is not one of my typical concepts. I'm looking at it now, and I can actually get a introspective idea, and I can see, okay, maybe we're building towards a life force that will reflect another building. So this becomes a story in itself. This one sigil here that we just rendered becomes an entire concept. It actually kind of looks like I see wheels too now. I'm looking at it different. I see like this could be a wheel, and this can be maybe like a wheelbarrow kind of thing. It becomes a shape. And now why it's important? You got televisions, typewriters, smoke alarms, light bulbs, lamps. These things all come from nature. It all comes from the planet, and they've been reshaped and renamed into things we use today. So this is the same concept, okay? If you're still watching this, I am very grateful that you are following along and paying attention. And please leave comments and suggestions, because I would love to start a conversation about this more, because we need to extend our time in classes on the planet. This is a university, okay? So, again, and I'm actually about to wrap this video up. Information and the shape of it helps us deep dive and discover the eternal land all around us in all of time and space. They told us land is only soil or maybe real estate. They call it real estate now. Real estate, okay? Real estate comes from our concept of our own thoughts. Land is where you land. It's where you land. When you're thinking, a lot of us are really coming to our own processes of concepts and thinkings of mathematics, and it's fantastic. When you're thinking, you're going to land on a thought. Maybe some of us read books. I like to read books. That sounds weird to say, right? I like to read books. When you're reading a book and you're reading a word into a sentence, you're actually landing your life force on intelligence to understand. I know that sounds really simple, yet once we start to appropriate, what we consider as land, we can then build on our land and invite others to land. Because land is what a space that others are invited to. It's like a YouTube page. When you go open up a YouTube page, that's land. There's somebody that can be in the United States, somebody that can be in Mexico, somebody that can be in Africa, somebody that can be in Japan. They don't have to be in the same space, yet they can land on the space and retrieve or collect, rejuvenate, store, transform all types of energy. And that's the point. That's the point. We want to reconnect with our energy. Because energy is what? Power. Energy is power. So now this will be one of my sigils that I do use. Now I'll land here. Once you become conscious, and I don't mean like you become conscious. I mean like once you let's say open your eyes when you're waking up in the morning or whenever you wake up. Just an example. You have a spectrum house of information or spaces that are important to you. Work, driving, your children, school, paying a bill, real estate. Depending on how vast your spectrum house is, you will empty your life force into these spaces. Okay, you will empty your life force into these spaces. In order to retrieve energy or power, which is information. And it can rejuvenate you or deplete you. Have you ever been into a space where there are maybe a lot of people around and you're very, you're an empath, so you can almost feel all the energy in the room. And when you walk out, you're exhausted, and not just like, exhausted by all the conversations or the social, conversations. You're physically exhausted. Like you have to eat, you have to sit down and take a nap. You know what I'm saying? Maybe you have to listen to some music to get you back up. I remember back when I was at my grandma's church, and by the time we were leaving, because my grandma was big on shouting. She loved to shout. She loved to get the energy up high. She liked to leave with the energy up high. That's just how she was. She was very special. Anyway, afterwards, after we left church, we would the first thing, and if anybody knows this about those kind of services, what's the first thing you would do when you get out of church? Okay, what is the first thing you're ready to do besides watch football? You want to eat. You are hungry. You are hungry. Mainly because your spirit and your life force has been, I don't want to say zapped. Okay, this is not that kind of conversation. It has just been used, whether you were using it or not. You're in a tempo, in a place where that is just the organization. That's what it's supposed to do. Your energy is being, and I wasn't shouting, so I wasn't just burning up my energy. I would just be sitting there sometimes. Most of the time, I'm just like, okay, I'm getting hungry now. I'm watching everything happen. I see spirit moving. I'm not sure if any of you guys are into the religions. We're not. This is not a religion channel. This is just saying that I whether you believe or not. That's not my. All I know is that after we left, you felt almost drained. Some people felt rejuvenated. It rejuvenated them. So this will be your inner power, your own power. Power is just not wind, water, and fire, or radio what's that stuff they got now? Like nuclear radioactive shit. It's not just the power is where you're going to put your intention. Where are you going to put your energy? Where are you going to land your energy? How do you land it? You land it by taking back your power. So we use symbols like this. Like I said, this is my building up here. And this just let me know that I want to build on something. Or it could just symbolize, it can symbolize a multitude of things, depending on how, versed you are with your own concepts. For the most part, it symbolizes, this symbol here symbolizes 3-dimensional building. And I want to use a concept I want to build on. I might put another concept next to it. Let's see. I'll let you guys into my concept. I might put a concept next to it. And I want to materialize this concept. This is how things are created. People sit down in rooms and have meetings and they materialize concepts. They don't show you those people who materialize concepts first. Maybe you might know some, but they're gonna use they're gonna get a concept first, and then they're gonna use earth material to reshape it to produce the concept. Now, here's the kicker, and we're gonna land with this. Here's the kicker. Because you're using nature, you're using the truth. There's no such thing. Nature does not have a shape either. Trees are not nature. The sun is not nature. That's just the truth. It's just a true intelligence. So you're reshaping truth. So what's going to happen is once you get something that's true, it'll work. That's what truth is. When you flick a lighter, the mechanism of the lighter, it's not a flame. There's no fire inside a lighter. There's no fire inside a lighter. But yet the mechanism, the reshaping, the little mechanisms that bring together, that are put together to make that lighter, when you flick it, time and space will open up a portal to where fire comes through. So things that we are surrounded by are things that are reshaped truth. If it's not, it probably won't work, or it'll fall apart, or it won't work. So we use these light languages to use truth in order to connect to other truths. I hope this message was understandable. I hope I didn't ramble. And I hope that you got something out of this. And I thank you again for listening. Peace and blessings to all. Peace.